From JBS Studios in Greater New York, this is the JBS News Update with Teisha Bader.
I'm Teisha Bader with the JBS News Update for Tuesday, April the 28th, 2020. Yom HaZikaron, Israel's memorial day to its fallen in battle and its victims of terror, concluded this evening in Israel. Israelis once again this morning came to a standstill to remember those lost. Jewish organizations here in the U.S. shared their support and solidarity in joining with the Jewish state in mourning, including the Conference of Presidents of Major American Jewish Organizations, who wrote, "On Yom HaZikaron, we pause to remember the brave men and women who answered the call to serve the Jewish state and gave their lives in its defense. We also remember today the innocent civilians taken by the senseless violence of terrorism. As we hear the siren ring out, we come together as a people to pay our solemn respects to Israel's 23,816 fallen soldiers and the more than 3,000 Israelis taken by terror. May their memory be for a blessing, and may these numbers cease to grow in our time." And this afternoon on Yom HaZikaron, a 19-year-old Palestinian stabbed a 62-year-old Israeli woman in the town of Kfar Saba. Israel police said the terrorist from the West Bank took out a knife and chased after her. A civilian who lives nearby saw what was happening. He stopped his car and opened fire at the terrorist. The victim was said to be in moderate to serious condition and was taken to the hospital for treatment, as was the terrorist, who was said to be in moderate condition. Meanwhile, a Jerusalem court ordered the Palestinian Authority to pay almost $150 million in damages to the families of people killed in terror attacks. This in response to a lawsuit brought by Israeli legal advocacy group Shurat Hadin on behalf of victims' families. Last year, the court ruled that the PA was liable for the attacks, most of which took place in Israel during the Second Palestinian Intifada in the early 2000s. Shurat Hadin's leader, Nitzana Darshan-Leitner, said, "We continue to fight even 20 years later, and we will not rest until we achieve justice for terror victims." The funds would come from tax money that Israel collects on behalf of the Palestinian Authority. Israel has until next month to consider whether it wants to appeal the court's decision, which it might consider over fears that the freezing of the funds could destabilize the Palestinian government. Well, yesterday marked the one-year anniversary of the shooting attack during services at the Poway synagogue in California. A virtual memorial was held on Sunday for Lori Kay, who was murdered at the Chabad of Poway on April the 27th of 2019. The 60-year-old was shot and killed by a gunman as she tried to shield the congregation's rabbi. Jewish organizations shared their sadness upon the one-year marker. The Anti-Defamation League tweeted of Kay, "We honor her memory today and every day by committing to fight against the anti-Semitism and hate that took her life." And tonight, Israelis turned from mourning to celebration of Israel's 72nd Independence Day, Yom HaAtzmaut. While again, because of the coronavirus pandemic, celebrations will be much more subdued this year, with a curfew in effect in Israel tonight through tomorrow night, keeping Israelis at home and preventing any gatherings. But Israelis are celebrating, virtually at least, with special programs on Zoom and Facebook Live, including Israeli singers performing at the Tower of David this evening in Jerusalem's Old City. And there is even an app to bring Israel's president, Reuven Rivlin, into the homes of Israel's citizens, so to speak. The app uses camera phones to project a hologram of the president. Speaking in Hebrew, he says, "I remember the first Yom HaAtzmaut, the day that Israel's flag was first raised to the top of the flagpole. We felt like we were witnessing a miracle. And here we are today, 72 years later, and I am together with you." And the annual torch lighting ceremony at Mount Herzl Military Cemetery in Jerusalem took place this evening, aired on Facebook Live without an audience because of the coronavirus, marking the official transition from the grief and mourning of Israel's Memorial Day to the joy and gratitude of its Independence Day. And here on JBS, we join with the people and the state of Israel to mourn its fallen and to celebrate its independence. Special programming tonight includes, at 7 o'clock, we hear from the late Prime Minister and President of Israel, Shimon Peres, who shares his personal reflections on Israel and the Jewish people. At 7:30, Kehilat Jeshurun, Ramaz, Central Synagogue, and the Park Avenue Synagogue join in marking the transition from Yom HaZikaron to Yom HaAtzmaut. That's with AIPAC, the FIDF, the Jewish Agency, and the UJA from Central Synagogue. At 8:30, it's Israeli singer Ron Eliran and David Ben-Gurion's complete reading of the Declaration of Independence of the State of Israel. At 9, Mark Golub sits down with fifth-generation Saba, Rochelle Ettingen, who recounts her experience as a young girl growing up in Israel during the birth of the state. At 10, Shalem College's Daniel Gordis speaks about the high price of Jewish statehood. And coming up next, Mark Golub speaks with Israel's Consul General in New York, Ambassador Dani Dayan, on the eve of Israel's Independence Day. And that's the JBS News Update for Tuesday, April the 28th, 2020. I'm Teisha Bader. Stay healthy, stay safe.